Boosie is in hot water with the feds. Him and J. Prince Jr. Mob ties.
When we left out the concert, we under the garage. Dude went to his car by himself and walked down to the parking lot. That's when somebody tried to rob him and killed the dude. What the hell my 19-year-old cousin gonna try to rob and kill somebody? Bro, we getting money, man.
Federal authorities are reportedly investigating Boosie for his alleged involvement in the setup and subsequent murder of Duke the Jeweler. The situation stems from a rigged dice game in Houston involving J. Prince Jr. I'm going to break down exactly how this setup unfolded, and trust me, the details are shocking. Before we dive into this, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, because we're getting into some serious street politics that stay hidden from the public eye. We are looking at organized crime operating under the guise of hip-hop culture. To understand the weight of this, we first have to look at who Duke the Jeweler actually was. He wasn't just a random jeweler from Chicago. He was one of the most respected figures in the Midwest jewelry scene. He built his entire reputation from scratch, serving everyone from local talent to major professional athletes. The story takes a turn when Duke receives a call from Boosie regarding a custom piece. While Duke was used to dealing with high-profile clients, Boosie was a different story. As a Louisiana legend with massive street credibility, a business deal with Boosie is the kind of opportunity that can elevate a jewelry business to a whole new level of success. Federal authorities are now looking into the suspicious circumstances surrounding how Duke was lured to Houston. Instead of conducting business in Chicago or Louisiana, Boosie specifically requested that Duke meet him in Texas for a massive Labor Day weekend event. The pitch was simple. There would be a crowd of celebrities looking for custom jewelry, presenting Duke with a golden opportunity to network and land several high-end orders. Duke was genuinely hyped for the trip. He even took to social media to share his excitement about heading to Houston for these potential business deals, completely unaware that he was walking into a fatal trap. To understand how this happened, we have to look at J. Prince Jr.'s operation, which is far more complex than it appears on the surface. He has been running a calculated scheme for years that has essentially turned targeting successful individuals into a science. The process is systematic. First, J. Prince Jr. identifies his targets, usually out-of-town rappers, athletes, or wealthy entrepreneurs visiting Houston. By leveraging his industry connections, he gathers intel on who is arriving, their financial status, and exactly what kind of high-value jewelry they'll be carrying. Then comes the approach. J. Prince Jr. doesn't just jump people. That's amateur moves. Instead, he positions himself as a Houston legend who's just trying to show love to visitors. Whether it's hitting you up on social media or using mutual friends to make an introduction, he does whatever it takes to look legitimate. Once he gets a target comfortable, the real game begins. He'll show them around the city and introduce them to his inner circle, making them feel like they've been granted entry into an exclusive club. In reality, he's just building trust to make the eventual setup easier. The plan for Duke was simple. Let him win a little at first to build his confidence, then use rigged dice to take everything. They wanted him comfortable enough to bet massive amounts so they could clean him out and send him back to Chicago. But that's where things went left. Word on the street is that Duke somehow ended up with the real dice instead of the loaded ones. Whether it was a mix-up or a mistake by whoever was handling them, Duke started playing a fair game and he started winning big. By the end of the night, Duke had won over $645,000. It was a complete sweep. He was taking money from everyone at the table, including some very dangerous individuals, who were definitely not used to losing their own cash. The tension in the room was visible as Duke's winning streak continued. You could feel the frustration building among the group because their own scam was backfiring right in front of them. They had the whole setup ready, magnetic tables and trick dice, but none of those advantages mattered once Duke started rolling with legitimate dice.
Man, Lord.
Boosie was standing behind Duke the entire time, and witnesses noticed him constantly whistling. While it initially seemed like he was just being playful, it's now believed those whistles were actually coded signals. He was likely communicating with others in the room, coordinating their next move as the situation spiraled out of their control. The tragic part is that Duke remained a class act throughout the night. Even as he was winning a fortune, he wasn't being disrespectful or flaunting his success. Unfortunately, winning that money was the worst thing that could have happened to him. Once Duke finished cleaning house, the energy in the room shifted instantly. The friendly, welcoming vibe vanished, replaced by something cold and calculated. There was no way they were going to let an out-of-town jeweler walk away with over $500,000 of their cash. According to witness statements and street reports, a meeting was held immediately after the game ended. Boosie, J. Prince Jr., and their crew reportedly got together to figure out how to reclaim their money. This wasn't a heat-of-a-moment reaction. It was a deliberate plan. This was a cold, calculated murder plot. Since they knew Duke was attending Boosie's concert the following night, They had plenty of time to orchestrate the entire thing. They tracked his movements, located his hotel, and mapped out the perfect ambush. It was less of a street beef and more of a business operation. They had multiple people tailing Duke throughout the day, waiting for the right moment to strike. When they finally cornered him in that parking lot, Duke didn't just give up. He tried to defend himself, but he was completely outnumbered. The shooters arrived, prepared for a full-on confrontation, while Duke was simply trying to get to his car and return to his hotel. The attack was swift and violent. They shot Duke multiple times, reclaimed every cent he had, won at the dice game, stripped him of his jewelry, and vanished. That's when Boosie's Oscar-worthy performance kicked in. Immediately after the murder, he went into damage control mode. He released several videos trying to distance himself from the incident, acting devastated on camera. He talked about how great of a guy Duke was, and claimed that this kind of violence wasn't his style, doing everything he could to shift the narrative.
Some dudes tried to rob him. See some dudes that tried to rob me and walked off by himself, bro.
Boosie also attempted to push a narrative that Duke actually lost money during the game. Despite the fact that everyone there knew he won big, he claimed Duke was a good sport about losing. But that makes zero sense. Why would someone be upset when they're up over $600,000? The lies just don't add up. Even more suspicious is how Boosie's account of what happened after the concert keeps shifting. First, he claimed Duke left alone. Then, he said Duke was with a group. Then the story changed yet again. When you're telling the truth, the details stay the same. Perhaps the most frustrating part of Boosie's reaction was how he tried to play the victim. He complained about the internet blaming him, how unfair the accusations were, and the toll it was taking on his mental health. It's wild a man lost his life, and Boosie was more concerned about his own reputation.
Internet, y'all got us all the way up, man. We met that dude, Duke the Jeweler, the night before. We was gambling. The next day, dude followed us to the concert. When we left out the concert, we under the garage. Dude went to his car by himself and walked down to the parking lot. That's when somebody tried to rob him and killed the dude. What the hell my 19-year-old cousin gonna try to rob and kill somebody? Bro, we getting money, man. We get fucking money. That ain't our stilo. As a boss, I ain't letting that go down like that, man. This dude finna make me a piece. So y'all need to kill that. That's bad low, man. Don't put us in nothing with no bad low. It's bad low, man.
The forced sympathy in his videos was so transparent that it actually backfired, making people even more skeptical. Real grief doesn't feel like a staged performance. But Boosie was clearly playing to the gallery. By trying so hard to appear innocent, he ended up looking incredibly guilty. Online investigators eventually uncovered video evidence showing Boosie's nephew leaving the building moments before the shooting occurred. It's wild people pieced together security footage, social media posts, and witness accounts to build a timeline that details exactly how the ambush went down. The internet detectives didn't stop there. They also found out that Duke's Louis Vuitton bag, which held his jewelry, ended up at Boosie's house. There's really no explaining that away. Boosie claimed Duke had asked him to hold on to it during the dice game. But if that's the case, why wasn't it returned to Duke's family after he was killed? Why was it just sitting at Boosie's place as if it belonged there? Since then, social media users have been connecting the dots between this case and several other suspicious incidents involving J. Prince Jr. and his associates. Investigators began noticing a pattern. Out-of-town artists being robbed or killed shortly after attending dice games in Houston. This wasn't an isolated incident involving Duke. It was clearly part of a much larger operation. But this is where Boosie's true colors really started to show. Once the internet basically pieced the case together and exposed the evidence, his entire demeanor shifted. Instead of playing the grieving friend, he became visibly angry that people had figured out the truth. That reaction alone spoke volumes about his involvement. Boosie started releasing heated videos, lashing out at internet detectives and keyboard warriors. He was furious that fans were connecting the dots. It raises a huge red flag. If you're actually innocent, why are you mad at people for seeking justice for Duke? An innocent person would want a thorough investigation to find the real killers and would appreciate people caring enough to find the truth. Instead, Boosie seemed more concerned with self-preservation than justice. He began trying to discredit the evidence the public had uncovered, making videos to explain away phone records, fingerprints, and witness statements. However, his explanations were inconsistent and never quite added up. When you have to work that hard to explain away evidence, it usually means you're hiding something. The fact that Boosie spent more time attacking people seeking justice than actually mourning, Duke showed everyone exactly where his priorities were. He was clearly more concerned with his reputation than the fact that a man had lost his life. things took an even more dramatic turn when Boosie's own family started turning against him. His brother TQ came forward claiming he had the receipts to prove Duke was set up. When your own flesh and blood is implicating you in a murder plot, you know the situation is critical now. TQ and Boosie have been feuding for years over money and business. According to court documents, TQ allegedly stole over $360,000 from Boosie's bank account and even helped one of his artists jump to another label behind his back. But the Duke situation pushed TQ to speak out in a way he never had before. He began hinting on social media that he knew the real story behind what happened in Houston and that Boosie wasn't nearly as innocent as he claimed. TQ insisted he had the evidence to expose the entire setup.
You think niggas wake up and just choose Boosie to steal from? You don't think there's better people to steal from? Like, it's not fucking happening. Boosie is not a victim, dog. Like, that nigga ain't no... Boosie is a fucking villain.
This is where the story gets absolutely wild. Many people believe the Duke situation is directly connected to the tragedy involving Takeoff from the Migos. Both incidents centered around dice games in Houston. Both involved J. Prince Jr.'s inner circle, and both resulted in successful young men losing their lives over money and jewelry. The pattern is too consistent to ignore. Successful artists visit Houston, get invited to these exclusive games. A dispute over money or respect breaks out, and it ends in a fatality. This isn't just a series of coincidences. It's a pattern of predatory behavior. It makes you wonder if there are other victims we haven't even heard about yet. It's chilling to think about how many successful individuals have been lured to Houston and never made it back home, or how many other families are grieving because of these setups. Charleston White has actually been calling this out for years, repeatedly warning people about the dangerous environment surrounding J. Prince Jr., been arguing that the check-in culture is essentially just a system used to identify and target successful people visiting the city. The Takeoff tragedy occurred at a dice game where money and respect were at stake. Sound familiar? Duke's situation unfolded right after a dice game where he took money from dangerous individuals. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Both cases involve the same circle, J. Prince Jr., his associates, and various Houston street figures who profit from these gambling operations. It appears to be a systematic way of luring successful people into higher-risk environments. The federal investigation into Duke's murder could potentially uncover evidence that links to Takeoff's case and other unsolved crimes in Houston. Once you pull on that one thread, the entire criminal network might start to unravel. As for where things stand right now, and why this is so significant for the industry, the federal investigation is still active. Sources close to the case suggest that indictments could be handed down soon. The evidence mounting against Boosie and his crew is significant, and federal prosecutors are notorious for only moving forward when they are certain they can secure a conviction. Boosie is still maintaining his innocence, but reports suggest his legal team is preparing for the worst-case scenario. When federal investigators are building a case against you, it isn't something you can just talk your way out of. The streets are watching this situation closely because it has the potential to expose an entire organized crime network that has been operating within the hip-hop industry for years. If Boosie is convicted, it could empower other victims to come forward and reveal similar operations in other cities. This case might fundamentally change how the industry handles security and business relationships. The ripple effects could be massive. Artists may become far more selective about who they trust and where they choose to do business. The Duke case has also put a spotlight on the inherent dangers of check-in culture. Artists are beginning to ask whether checking in with local street figures is actually about respect and protection, or if it's just a tool for criminals to identify and target successful people. Consequently, record labels and management firms are reportedly reviewing their security protocols and advising their artists to exercise extreme caution when traveling to certain cities. The era of blindly trusting street legends might finally be coming to an end. This case has the potential to trigger federal investigations into similar operations across other major cities. If authorities can prove that an organized criminal network is specifically targeting successful figures in hip-hop, it could lead to a massive nationwide crackdown. The impact on Houston's music scene would be equally significant. If J. Prince Jr. and his associates are held accountable, it could dismantle the existing power structure in the city, allowing artists and entrepreneurs to operate freely without feeling obligated to pay tribute to street figures. That is the complete breakdown of the allegations surrounding Boosie and the tragic setup of Duke the Jeweler. From the suspicious dice game to the inconsistent public reactions and the ongoing federal interest, the details point toward a calculated move from within the inner circle. Ultimately, this story is about much more than a single crime. It's about the dangerous intersection of the industry and the streets. This entire situation points to a systematic criminal operation that has been preying on successful figures in the hip-hop industry for years. Duke the Jeweler is just one victim in a broader pattern of violence and exploitation that is finally being brought to light. The fact that Boosie's own family has turned against him underscores the gravity of these allegations. When those closest to you can no longer defend your actions, it's a sign that a line has been crossed that can't be uncrossed. While the federal investigation continues, all indicators suggest that major indictments are on the horizon. The evidence is mounting, witnesses are coming forward, and the pattern of criminal activity is becoming too clear for prosecutors to overlook. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective on the case, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. The streets are talking, and we're going to keep uncovering the truth about what's actually happening behind the scenes in hip-hop. This is the kind of investigative reporting that mainstream media avoids, but you deserve the full story. For more deep dives into street politics and the reality of how organized crime has infiltrated the music industry, be sure to check out my next video. We're talking about cases that will genuinely blow your mind. Stay safe out there, and remember, not everyone who smiles at you is actually your friend. Sometimes the very people who invite you to the party are the ones planning to rob you in the parking lot. Duke the Jeweler learned this lesson in the most tragic way possible, and his death should serve as a wake-up call for everyone in the industry. The truth always finds a way out, no matter how much effort is put into hiding it. Boosie might have thought he could distance himself with staged sympathy videos, but the internet is undefeated when it comes to uncovering the facts. Justice for Duke is on the way, and when it arrives, it's going to expose an entire network of people who believed they were untouchable. The feds are watching, the evidence is stacking up, and the walls are closing in on everyone involved in this conspiracy. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace. And remember, when you're dealing with serious money and high-value jewelry, be careful who you trust. Your life might literally depend on it.